Good morning. Thank you for the kind introduction. I really appreciate it. So I got, they said JD and MBA and BA. I also got my first degree from HUD. I grew up in a housing project in Boston and was on the front lines of desegregation. So if anybody remember desegregation in Boston, where the courts took over the schools in 1974 and there was busing and police officers that every bus that left our neighborhood had a police escort, that was my housing project. That was ground zero. So I had a front row seat on the importance of education. And 13 years after that, the people who led that effort said to me and a group of young people, you were the first generation of folks that could go to desegregated schools from kindergarten to 12th grade. It took us a lot of hard work and a court order. It took 20 years after Brown. Brown was 54, the courts desegregated Boston in 74. And it's 13 years later and we don't have a lot to show for it. So they pulled us in a room and said, we don't have a lot to show for it because the numbers aren't that much better. And your generation has to figure this out. Some of you are gonna have to dedicate your lives to sorting out how do we get to the next point of success in our community, because we've dedicated ours and we've gone about as far as we think we can go with the strategies that we know how to execute. So that led me on this quest to try to build new education institutions. Let me just read, so that's kind of my background, and I really want to thank the folks today. Before I jump into this, I want to thank you guys for having me. I want to thank Purpose Built Community. I'm here because of Alice Simmons and the team at Youth Uprising and the fabulous work that they're doing. We stumbled into each other. I live in Oakland and moved out there to build this company, and one of the benefits of being there was meeting Alice and some of the other folks in the community that are doing fantastic work, and then getting connected with you guys. So it's a privilege to be here. What I'm going to do today is frame big picture what's happening in higher education, and then how we've attacked the problem and how we partner with employers and community organizations to make higher ed affordable. This will go quickly, so just bear with me through this part. Let's talk about some fast facts in higher ed in the US. So under 30% of the US, and you guys know these figures, you've seen this before, so this will go quickly. Under 30% of the adult population has a college degree. In China, it's less than 5%. To meet China's demand for higher ed, we would need to build 1,000 universities the size of they would need to build 1,000 universities the size of the University of Indiana. College graduates in the US earn 2 times more than high school graduates, and that number is actually, that gap is widening. It's mainly widening because high school graduates are earning less. That's what's driving the gap. But on 30% of students, 30% of US students, high school students, never graduate from college, from high school. 30% of students never graduate from high school. For a third of the largest school districts, it's over 50%. For Hispanics and African Americans, it's over 50%. They're 2 times more likely to be unemployed, 8 times more likely to be in prison. So the economic impact of this, it's about $300 billion a year. The GDP of Kansas, let's go back. That's the GDP of Kansas, Utah, Nebraska, and Alaska combined every year. So we're just wasting our resources. China is going to be the largest English-speaking country in the world in the next 3 years. So why am I going back and forth between those? Because the world's changing while we're sort of not dealing with our issues. The rest of the world is. They have to. It's an imperative. India has more honor students than we've got students, just to frame this, right? And their major exports are no longer gems and jewelry. It's human capital. So let's talk about education. That's one view of how our education system works and doesn't work and what's playing out. Here's another lens. I think this is like George Washington crossing the Delaware. I think some people were behind him. This is the late 1700s. So this is an opening shot. This is what transportation looked like back then. This is what it looks like now. This is what medicine looked like back then. I think that guy is doing a surgery, there's a leech or something like that. This is what medicine looks like now. It's lighting back then. It's lighting now. Warfare back then. This is warfare today. Communication back then. Communication now. Education back then. Education now, right. So if you came from that time in history, and if you were alive back then in the US, and you transported to today, the only two things you would understand, only two institutions that would make any sense to you would be schools and churches. And I understand why churches haven't changed. I don't understand why education hasn't changed. So that's where, so what's happened is the world has shifted, the expectations are gotten higher, the rest of the world is moving, and education is getting better, just not getting better fast enough, and it's gotten caught flat-footed. So that's been my theory of what's happening. So what do we do about it? So the old model of education, of higher education, is focused on inputs. Our model, what you're going to hear about, is focused on outcomes. Old model is seat time based, rigid, structured. These new models are self-paced. Old models are based on standardized lecturing. So my job is to stand up in front of you and talk and give you all the same material, and I'll do the same class 5 times a week, depending on how many sections I teach. The new model is personalized, based on personalized. The UNow model, or the new models of education, are based on personalized coaching. The old model has uncoordinated classes where you might be, your history class and someone else's history class could be totally different during the same university. Your math class and my math class might be totally different. Same course number, looks very different when you peel it back. Here, what we're talking about are tightly aligned competencies where we know what you should know on the back end and we measure that. We're focused on that. Limited use of instructional technology, it's an afterthought. We throw computers around, kind of give kids some technology, maybe the whiteboard, and that's it. Our model is, and the new models you're seeing that are emerging today are about adaptive learning platforms that personalize the instruction. And then on the business model side, the old models were about pay first, access later. Like you can't sit in the classroom unless you've paid. When I was in college, they came around, a couple of weeks into the class, and you knew who didn't pay because they got pulled out of class, right? So it's pay first, access later. Our model, the new models, are try before you buy, learn first. Let's lower the cost of entry, right? That's what you're seeing now. That's what we're trying to do. And then it's really expensive. The old model costs a lot. You finance it by borrowing. Our model is pay as you go, which is, you pay it out of your pocket. You make it affordable for everyday people. And then we do a fast, quick process to get you enrolled, 30 days versus 30 minutes. So you streamline make it more efficient for everybody, and that's just one example of that. So UniversityNow is the company that I founded 4 years ago to try to tackle the problem and take what these learnings were from that slide and implement them into a business. We're a social venture that operates an online self-paced university that's fully accredited. So Patton is accredited by WASC, which is the accrediting body for UC, Stanford, Caltech, all the California schools, and we're one of those schools. If you've probably heard of MOOCs before, some of you that are out there. So while the MOOCs were getting funded to solve the problem of how do we get Ivy League courses to people who didn't do Ivy League, you couldn't get to Ivy League courses, and it turns out 80% of their users are people who have college degrees. So 80% of the folks on the MOOC have a degree. This is kind of like extracurricular. We looked at this problem, Tom, Stewart, who's here, and a few of us, and said, how do we take this technology, these models, and use it to build on-ramps for the communities that you're serving? How do we make this work for everyday folks? And a lot of people in Silicon Valley didn't understand what we were saying. And we told them, if you really want to understand our business, just go down to the bus stop at community college and listen to the stories, and then you'll understand why we're doing this. Go down to East Oakland, stand at the BART station for an hour, and just talk to people, and you'll get why we're doing this. And this will solve our problem more than like taking an Ivy League course and history class from Harvard and sticking it online. And no offense, I went to school there, so I don't have, there's no, but it's just to frame how we've come at this. Patton, what we did here was we said, let's use a model of coaching where the model we use is every student gets an advisor when they come in, and that advisor is like a life coach. They're with you no matter what class you take. This is called a disaggregated faculty model. So the faculty is with you no matter what, advisors are with you no matter what class you take. The instructor is a subject matter expert, and they coach you through the course. Now the folks to the left don't grade you. You're graded separately by a group of evaluators. So this is this aggregated faculty model. So imagine a classroom. What I'm going to show you is a classroom that looks like a room. Students are coming in, they're taking an initial assessment, and they're moving through the class at whatever speed they need to move in. If some people come in, they know some of the material, they come right into the middle of the class. And we have technology to make that a seamless experience and a robust learning experience for students. Our instructors and advisors, because it's disaggregated, they can spend 40 hours a week coaching students. So you get a ton of feedback and a ton of support with this model. And you have to like students. So we don't teach courses at University Now at Patton. We teach people. We don't teach course. If you didn't learn, the course didn't work. It's not like you all fail and I'm a good instructor because I failed you all. Oh, you failed. Like the course didn't work. So we look at the data and information and we position the faculty we put the faculty into a position where they understand that their job is to make students successful, full stop, period. Here's what the technology looks like. So when we built this company, we realized there's a lot of good learning and education, a lot of good work's been done around these competency-based models, but nobody built a technology platform for it. So we hired a group of folks who knew something about competency-based or self-paced learning and put them in a room with a bunch of folks from Google, Yahoo, Facebook, engineers, and we hired them and said, if we were going to build this today with the modern technology, all the stuff that we know, what would it look like? This is the platform. So if you notice, this is what's called a course homepage. So every course starts with an assessment. And these little green bars, they're not progress bars. They tell you how much of the course content you've actually mastered. What of this course content have you mastered and how much and where are you? And we break each course into units. If you notice down here, there's a pre-final, a project, and a final. With our model, we don't let you unlock the final until you can pass it. So it's a little counterintuitive. It's a self-paced model, but you can't actually take the final until you can pass it. So the point isn't to take the test and pass it. The point is to learn the material. And so one way to reinforce that is you do all this work in the platform at your own pace. And then at the end, when we know that when you can pass the final, we unlock it. You can also go right to the pre-final, and you can challenge the course and take it in a day. So you could say, I know this already, go right to the pre-final, unlike the final, submit your project paper or whatever it is, and get your course credit and move on to the next class. Students can finish the class in as little as a day. They can take up to 16 weeks. Now, what we saw when we built this was the problem with the technology, these self-paced models, are that people feel lost and alone. It's really the problem online. People feel like I'm on my own, I don't have anybody looking out for me, and I don't know what to do next. And they're both the same issue. You don't have a cohort. So we dynamically build a cohort for you, no matter where you are. And that's right here are 30 people. So imagine there's 300 folks in the room. That's your 30, right? These are your classmates based on your pace and where you are in the course. That's your instructor. They're always available. You can chat, you can talk, you can schedule one-on-one sessions, they can do reviews with you. I mean, it's very hands-on model. Then we break down the course into learning objectives, and here's what it looks like for these resources. Think about this as the syllabus. The core resources are kind of like the stuff that the faculty said that you should do to pass the course. We also look at that and see whether it works or not. So every week or two, we look at a class, we take data, and we see, does this stuff work? And if it doesn't, we replace it on the fly without changing the class. And if you haven't seen it, you get the new stuff. And if you've seen the old one and it didn't work for you, we recommend it to you. These supplemental resources are stuff that teachers add to the class, students can add. So it's very engaging. This is an ebook, so all of our materials and books are included. And here's an exercise, an activity, a flashcard. So in this case, students actually are practicing for the exam. They're using flashcards that either they built or we built. And all this stuff updates your readiness indicator. And we call these green bars the readiness indicator, and they let you know where you are. When that thing is full, you can sit for the final, when that readiness indicator indicates that you've mastered it. Here's where the course gets adaptive. At the end of every unit, we ask students, how ready are you to move on to the next unit? And if the students click in here, you can see at the bottom, this student is ready on 2 units, they're okay on 2, they're doing okay but not great, and they probably never started the 5th one. And that gives them the feedback that they need to move on and to know where to focus, right? And if they click on that, they're gonna get a playlist of material that they should actually work on. So we made it very intuitive, using the same principles as a Facebook or any other online site. We're just applying it to this problem in a business model that works for everyday folks. Here's our tuition. Our tuition is $2,600 an academic year, roughly speaking. So it's $1,330 a term. It includes all your books and materials. That's our retail tuition. So we're the lowest cost school in the country. We launched the school online last June, and now we're the fastest growing school in the country. We're growing at about 30% a month. Our average student is a 36 or 38-year-old without a college degree. They're a frontline worker at a Walmart or they're a bank teller. They are working in a call center. If you go to a Verizon wireless store, it's frontline workers who are in companies, and they're trying to get from the front lines up, or in some cases they're unemployed. But I'd say about 92% of our students are working adults, working class folks who are struggling to get up the career ladder. We do associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees. These are our undergraduate prices. How does that compare? So patent is $2,660. It should be $2,660. A public four-year on average is about $8,200. Online for-profit, which is our primary competitor, about $15,000 to $20,000 depending on the school. And then a private four-year is about $30,000. So we've fundamentally disrupted the economics of online higher education is what we did, with a business model that's sound and that works for students and for us. Now, how does this apply to the work and then we've got a board member of some folks who put their credibility behind this, former mayor of Oakland, chancellor of Dallas Community College System, former president of University of Maryland's online system, and a former U.S. Secretary of Education are on the board of the school. We've been identified as a breakthrough model by Gates and funded by the California Endowment to serve communities in Oakland, and hopefully that includes partnering with Youth Uprising. So what we've done with this, we've been going to market primarily just reaching out to consumers and saying, hey, we're here, and are you interested? And that's worked really well. And then we began saying, okay, how do we partner with community groups and employers in much more nuanced ways where we embed what we've built into the work that they're doing and help to accelerate their work. So one initiative is called Accelerated College. And with that, we partner with charter schools and community groups, and we offer online college courses to high school students at no cost to the high school students. So you're in a self-paced college course. You can take as many of them as you can complete. You can get up to an associate's degree, and tuition is free. And we figured that, and one of the things in terms of doing this work, it's not enough just to go, we got to think past, we're building a great charter school preparing kids for college. We should be thinking about how do we help the kids in East Oakland and places like that leave high school with college credit. It dramatically increases the likelihood that they're going to complete, and it cuts down the time to cost, right? It sets them up to be ahead as opposed to behind when they show up on the college campus. So this model allows you to do that. And I have a theory that more schools are going to do more like this because the bar is getting raised every day. At your best charter schools today in America, and I'm on the National Alliance Public Charter School Board, so I know some of this data, your best charter schools, they're lucky if they've got a 40% college graduation rate. Lucky if they got 40. That's your best. So we're still dealing with crisis level outcomes as opposed to kids being set up for success. The other thing we do is we partner with employers and groups that work with employers to use employer-funded tuition assistance to help adults get their degree for free. So 85% of large employers have some form of TA, tuition assistance. It's usually about $5,000 a year. $5,250 is a federal limit where you can give an employee a tuition benefit and it doesn't count as income. So it turns out that that's more than our tuition. So if you work at AT&T, it's a full ride to college. If you work in the Verizon store, it's a full ride to college. If you're at Starbucks, it's half of your college costs paid. And you can afford this out of pocket. And so half of our students that are in our school now are people who are in these tuition assistance programs. They were going to university of, pick your online university, and they said, wait a minute, I can go to school for free. I don't have to borrow $15,000 or $20,000. And right now, the biggest debt crisis, and you guys probably know this in the country, is school loan debt. And it's not kids, it's working adults who are trying to go back to school to do all the things that all of us here are asking them to do, get themselves educated, get back on track. What is a $20,000 a year speeding ticket that you have to pay to do that, called tuition? We've just tried to solve that problem. So we help working adults use TA, tuition assistance, to transform their lives by earning college degrees for free. That's the second way we partner. And so here's an example of Macy's, right? They have a lot of workers who are part-time, full-time. If you work at Macy's and you work more than 20 hours a week, it's a free college degree. Macy's promotes that to their frontline workers. Here's Starbucks we partner with. Here's FedEx Office. Earn your degree for free from Patton University. So your FedEx drivers, the folks who deliver your packages, the part-time workers at FedEx, quite frankly, in this instance, can go to school for free. Here's AT&T. This is an actual email they sent out to their employees. You know, they have these discount programs, so you can get Microsoft Office, which is actually a pretty good deal, $9.95. You know, get a car, and by the way, pick up a degree for free from Patton while you're doing it. So when that email went out, it shut their call centers down. I got a call from, it's a crazy email. This is just a side story. I got a call from some exec, and I got the email chain on this first, and it said, who did this? Who allowed our who gave these guys the right to let our employees go to school for free? So my response was kind of like, you did. You gave them tuition assistance. Well, what do you mean? They can't do that. I mean, it was like, it got all the way up to the top of HR within, you know, an hour. So I called the guy, and he said, I happened to know him, and he said, hey, how you doing, Gene? I said, well, it depends on how this call goes. I just got this crazy email from your folks saying that our tuition is too low. So you tell me how's it going. And we worked it out. But the point is that this struck a nerve. So Patton went from having no employees at AT&T, have you ever gone to Patton University, to being the largest school of active enrollment for AT&T. They have 200,000 employees, 4,000 people actively enrolled right now in college in 2,000 schools, and several hundred of them now go to Patton for free to get their degree. And our first graduate, Tom, was 2 weeks ago from AT&T up in Seattle. So this is a working adult with a family, you know, frontline worker, doesn't make a lot, and trying to improve his life. And I'm not even sure if it was full-time at AT&T. But so we try to attack this from a business model perspective. And so we look for opportunities to take what we built and partner with communities to transform, you know, to make this an accelerant, as opposed to working with higher ed now, which is something most people have to endure. They're trying to figure out, how do I, you know, I'm doing this work in the community, and how do I bring the community college in, and with all the constraints and politics around it. We strip that out and say, here's a model that you can, and folks who understand the work you're doing, that can work with you. So that's the story of our company. Any questions? Okay, and then you're next. Yeah.
Yeah. You showed on with the green lights how students can see they're progressing in the course, but if a student is not progressing, do you then have some red lights that tells the student, hey, you better get going, otherwise you're not going to pass this course?
Yeah, I didn't give you the whole dashboard. I could have given you a lot more slides. I didn't want to make this a commercial, but the question is, do we tell students to have green lights and tell them when they're not on board? And the answer is yeah. In fact, that thing also goes backwards. So like, if you don't do work and you're doing things like gaming the system, so you get a robust dashboard that tells you where to focus. You know exactly where you are. We call it the two-way mirror. You can see it and your teacher can see it. And what's different about this is we're using data not to judge you, but to give you information to get better. So we do a lot of that. Yeah.
What about your transcript? If you fail a course, can you continue to go on taking other courses?
No, so if you fail a course, you got to do it again. I mean, we don't, so when I say that, it's like this. Imagine a course is self-paced. So we don't let you take the final until you can pass it, right? Most people, if they're failing a course, it's, you know, something's really wrong. But we give you the 16 weeks to finish a course. That's the length of a term. You could finish a bunch of courses in 16 weeks or one. And then if you're having trouble, you can always get an incomplete and get another month to try to complete the work. But what happens is the faculty dives in and they know that you're stuck way before you fail the exam. We know way upstream that you're not making it. It's an early warning system, so we know when you're stuck and we can intervene.
So how does your transcript?
Oh, well, I got to get one question at a time here. I'm going to get in trouble, so let me get. Oh, one course at a time. Oh, and it's one course at a time, by the way, I'm sorry. One course. So what that means is you're only taking one course at a time, you complete that, and you go on. So you'd be right there working on that course, right? You get as much time as you need to complete it. Does that help? Maybe? Sure. Okay. You were next. Yeah.
You said you partner with charter schools and that tuition is free for high school kids to get college credit. Mm-hmm. So tuition is free, but I assume the charter school has to pay you some fee. And what's the pricing model? How does that work?
Right now, we're just figuring this out, so we're not charging anything. Right now, we've gotten foundations to just fund it. And you know, when the dust clears, it'll be in the hundreds of dollars, low hundreds, not in the thousands of dollars. It'll be very modest. We're trying to do this somewhere above our costs. And in case of charter schools, which have faculty and labor, and they can actually bring some of the instructional resources to this, the costs are zero. So right now, we're running partnerships where the charters aren't paying anything, and we're looking for creative ways to make the business model stick. And I used to run charters, so I understand the constraints on the P&L of a charter school.
Yeah, good morning. I think you're doing a great job with this idea, and it's very revolutionary. I want to ask you a question. A lot of our residents are people that we're considering to take the solution back to have enrolled in previous colleges. How is your transfer process from like a community college or a regular college? You know, how does that look as far as evaluation?
Yeah, about over half our students are transferring from somewhere. So the average student is transferring in 7 courses. Most of the people we see have been to 2 or 3 colleges and it didn't work. So they're coming in with 2 or 3 transcripts and they've cobbled together a year, of college if they're lucky from a bunch of different places. And what this is a very different model. Then we have students who come in, do a degree, and transfer that out. So the transfer in and out is pretty seamless. Sorry.
So we're all working in different communities around the country. Is there any benefit, or have you explored the benefit of having an in-person presence related to your community? Exactly. So the question is there a benefit? And the answer is yes, and that's why we're doing it. The results are actually better for a lot of kids. So the high school students and the accelerated college students and students where we partner do better on average. Outside of the education environment, Yeah, so like if you've got a community group and you bring a coach and a support system while they're doing this, the odds that they complete go up significantly, like double digits. It's a real game changer, yeah, if you can get someone on the ground to be helpful.
One of the things we continue to hear from community colleges is that students are coming in unprepared, and so they're having to do remedial work or developmental work, whichever term you want to use. How much of that are you seeing in your population coming in? How are you addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we address it in the fundamental business model, in the delivery model. It's self-paced. We assume people are coming in varied skill level. So if you're stuck on something, rather than having to fit, so right now the way the model works is the show goes on whether you show up or not. Like we have a class schedule, the buildings, there's like, the lights are on, and we're going to run this course from September whatever until December whatever, whether you get it or not. Our model slows it down and speeds it up for you. It's a very different way to go to school so you're not running a gauntlet and, oh, by the way, it's timed. What you're doing is taking the time you need to slow down and focus on what you need to focus on. And so for struggling learners, people who are getting back on, going back to school for the first time, which is a lot of our students, most of our students weren't choosing between us and Harvard. And well, I think I might go to Harvard and take this, I'm going to major in Latin, but I'd rather go to Patton. There's 2 different markets. Right? What we have are folks who gone to community college, didn't finish school. The system didn't work. Nothing wrong with the people, but the system didn't work. Our system is built for them, and it doesn't make you feel like you're not smart, which is what happens now. You have to fail before I can help you. I'm not going to let you fail. I'm going to give you the feedback. Our model gives you the feedback up front, and we have folks who will intervene and help you right then and there with what you're stuck with. Right, and then move you through. So we have higher throughput rates for an online school. Our persistence rates are higher because of that.
Hi. Yes, I want to commend you on this great model that's making it affordable for everyone and self-paced. I think it's a great way to go for the future. I had a question in terms of job placement and assistance with moving forward after you get your degree, because I do know that some for-profit universities that offer online courses, University of Phoenix, Strayer, and all those have been getting a lot of criticism for once you have your degree, people aren't getting jobs.
Right.
So,
that's right. So right now we're new. So we do work with employers, like you saw, so that helps. 92% of our students are working. So one of the issues we've got is a lot of people have jobs, and about 8% of them aren't working, and they're going, even though they're unemployed, they can afford a couple $100s with our discounts that we offer to go. So we do some job placement, not a lot. We haven't geared it up yet because we just got our 1 graduate. So I guess he has a job at AT&T. So we don't have to place him, right? So we may need to, but anyway, the point is we haven't gotten to that part of this yet. That's coming next, and we'll be able to help students as we scale up.
Hi, I'm online now.
Oh, okay, hi.
Looking at your school, and one of the questions someone asked was, how long does it usually take? And it says depends on courses that are transferred, or?
So you come in, so let's say the average student brings in a year's worth of college. That's one thing, so we'll accept credits from other places to the extent there's overlap. The average working adult does a class in about 6 weeks, and that's average. If you peel it back, what you find is some people are going really fast. They're doing 4, 5, 6 courses in a term. and they're doing a course every couple of weeks. And some people are going a lot slower. They're completing one class in the term, and it's all over the map. The average is somewhere to about 6 weeks, which is 2.5 courses per 4-month term. So translation, you can do a 4-year degree in roughly 4 years, even while you have a job. What we do find, though, is people they take fewer classes on average during the summer and over the winter holidays, like Christmas, Thanksgiving. No surprise there. And they do more courses. Their pace speeds up during the other times of the year, and that's generally what we see. So really, how fast you go depends on what you come in with, how good of a learner you are, how much time you have to dedicate to this. And you can go as fast as makes sense for you.
So in any fast growth type of enterprise like this, there's always issues that strain the system. What are the issues that are straining your system, and specifically, how do you ensure the caliber of teachers, professors to hold the education quality up, and how do you make sure that they're doing the kinds of jobs that you would expect?
Yeah, I mean, the place we haven't seen the strain is in teachers, and I'll just frame it this way. 70% of instructors in higher ed are adjuncts. They're working between 2 or 3 schools. The average class, they're paying a couple $1,000s a year. We pay full-time with benefits, and you get to work with students on a great technology platform. So we got a huge labor advantage around getting folks. We have a line of folks out the door applying for every job. So that doesn't become the constraint. For us, it's just capital. I'm constantly raising capital. Like, and we put $50 million into this thing, or probably another 50 to 60 in the next few weeks. So that becomes a constraint. You've got to build infrastructure. You've got to build, and I've got a group of folks that are Silicon Valley type engineers, and it gets bigger by the moment, and they like things like latte and coffee and stuff like that at work with their flip-flops. So it's been a real culture shift, and bring their dog, by the way, anything else you can think of. So that's like for me personally, that's my biggest strain, because I didn't grow up with that. But I mean, in all seriousness, I think, the human resource part of it, but I think on the instructional front, that's not where the issue is. It's really about investing in the infrastructure to build the business out now. And we put a lot of dollars into, we'd like to put less money into marketing and more money into partnering. So we're trying to shift away from consumer marketing, which is really expensive. I mean, we go toe to toe with Phoenix and these guys, and we beat them we're scaling up, and their prices are falling. So, what we like to do is more of this partnering to preserve those resources, and we don't have to raise as much capital. Sorry. Go ahead.
I just had a question. You talked about different businesses in it. Is government allowed to take that?
Yeah, you can. We have government. We do work with the different government agencies. I forgot to mention one thing. We don't accept federal money. There's no government money in our school. That was the key to doing this, by the way, because financial aid is tied to seat time. It forces you to do things like take 4 classes when you can to keep your aid. So you take 2 basket weaving classes and then the 2 you need, and you pay for all 4 and you borrow to do it. The system's crazy. So we were the first school to voluntarily walk from federal Title IV when we acquired Patton. And they told us, you can't do that. What do you mean you're walking? You can't leave voluntarily. We can throw you off, but you can't leave. So we pulled Patton off Title IV. We don't take federal money, and that's been a big help. I know that wasn't the question you asked, but
No, I'm just saying if
yeah.
you work for a city or
Yeah, so we do. We partner with Oakland and Sacramento. We've got 85 firemen in Sacramento, public responders and police that work for us. We have a couple dozen folks in Oakland. So we partner with cities to roll out a Go to College for Free program for city workers. And a lot of them are doing this because they have education incentives in their contract that if they get a degree, their pay goes up forever, including through their pension. So a lot of folks are going to school for free in Northern California now at Patton, and their pay is going up once they get their degree.
Just think about, particularly for the nonprofits, that doesn't pay as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so have you established any partnerships with nonprofits to help their employees?
Not yet. We've talked to folks, and if we see someone at a nonprofit, I mean, we would do a discount, but we haven't done it systematically. But we would like to, so maybe we could do that. Yeah. Sold. Yeah. And then I'll come back over here.
I'm listening to this model and thinking about students with special needs or individuals with learning disabilities. I'm wondering, just hearing about the support that they would receive, have you found that that's been helpful, or are you tracking that in any way?
We haven't started tracking it yet, not at the way you would be thinking about it, like from a high school standpoint. We haven't gotten to that yet. But it's the same, so it grows from the same pedagogy of everybody has a learning plan and it's, dynamic and there's feedback to it. I think there was somebody I said I'd call you.
Hi. It's interesting to hear that you have decoupled yourself from the federal financial aid system. And I'm wondering if there's a vision for an advocacy platform around reforming that system, using patent as an example.
So yes, I think there's a dialogue. Right now there's this, it's politicized, so we've decided that we can't get the work done. My last two companies were exceedingly political. I spent all of my time fighting, pick your, politician on the issue. And what we've done here is depoliticize so we can be a proof point and shift the dialogue. Now, then I think there's things we can do. One of the things I've realized in this employer tuition assistance strategy was that employers get a tax deduction. Well, what if they got a tax credit? Now all of a sudden Walmart and maybe Rite Aid and these places would actually offer $5,000 to their employees. And if there are companies like this, not just us, but anybody at this price point, it's a full ride. We might solve the problem, but we're going to have to rethink the model. The spot on the chessboard that I've chosen right now, at least at this point in my career, is let me just build a proof point, because it all seems like science fiction until somebody does it. Then they do it, and they're like, oh, now I get it. So, we're willing to endure really being misunderstood while we pull this off. And now more people are understanding what we're doing. But I think there are folks who want to do advocacy. We're more than willing to be in the conversation. We're just probably not the best positioned folks to lead it, right? You have a question now.
Could you talk some more about what you feel the benefit is for high school students, and especially the population of students that we're likely to be working with, and also the relationship with the schools themselves?
Yeah, I think there's the big thing you're combating is low expectations. People not believing they can do the work. So the thesis behind this is that this whole model, what I liked about this when I saw this model and we built the company around it, was that you don't have to fail. Right now, a lot of kids are just being set up for failure, and then they just back away from the academic challenge. They say, I got to college, I got stuck in these remedial courses, that's where the dumb folks go, and so school's not for me, and they don't put the effort in, and they shut down. So what we're trying to do is say, you'll walk into college, you're almost a transfer student. You can go into college with a lot of that out of the way, and your confidence level is higher, and your skill level is higher, because you've done the work, and we've kept you engaged in a platform that's something closer to what you're used to. Because you're engaging on text messaging, you're messaging your friends. It's not like you don't have a life, you're just not applying yourself academically. What this does is raises the bar for high school students and the schools. And it's counterintuitive, because and we've had a few charter schools that get it, and they've said, listen, this makes a lot of sense. Like, this isn't just for the kids who perform well, it's for any kid that'll step up to the plate. We're gonna let them take courses with you guys and walk out with transcripts. So we have a cohort of high school students in South Central LA that went this summer. About half of them completed the course over the summer, and the rest are chipping away at it. My suspicion is by the time they get to December at the current pace, all of them will have earned some college credit while they're in high school. And that builds your confidence up and lets you see yourself as a college graduate. It's no longer theory. You have a transcript from Patton University before you walked out of high school. That's why we're trying to change the mindset. And by the way, you'll learn something too. But the real idea is to get the mindset changed and set them up for success in college.
So I have two questions. One is the tuition is the same per semester no matter how many courses you can do in the semester?
Right. We don't charge for classes, we just charge for time.
And the second question is, what about transfer the other way? So a student completes a few courses while they're in high school, then are other universities accepting?
Because we're WASC accredited and our courses are routinely accepted by, like in California, around the country by other schools. We're what's called a regionally accredited university. It's your top tier accreditation. We don't have a problem. For general education classes, if you're taking an upper level course. And then every school is different. Morehouse, you can't transfer history in from anywhere. You have to take it at Morehouse, no matter where else you took it. So every school's got their signature classes, but for the most part, our courses transfer to other schools because of the accreditation.
So I think that I'm really excited about you doing this session, and I want to say a couple things that I know from my experience working with you that haven't been said. So it's interesting in the introduction that we didn't talk about how Forbes called you the top disruptive innovator in the country. because it's true, like this is.
I apologize.
What did they know? I didn't hear what you said.
So Forbes named Gene Wade the top disruptive innovator in America. Pivot of the entire model. And so I came into the relationship with UniversityNow in Patton because for me, education is a driving force towards the goal of the transformation of the place. It's not a standalone deal for me. It's a deal towards a larger change of the place. And so I want to put out a couple things that we've done that might be of interest to other people. One is that if you're really talking about a cradle to career model and early ed is important to you, you might want to join me in sort of partnering with UniversityNow to think about an accreditation program for early education, because being able to have people move through their platform at an affordable rate, to have them on the other end be people who can do early ed for you, then you've got truly a cradle to career in this one dynamic, in this one relationship.
Right.
So we're thinking about that, and I wanted to sort of put that out to rest of the purpose-built network, because you get to up your early ed quality if in fact you're using this platform to take people that live in your place and have them be your early ed provider. So that's one thing. Two is the possibility that every single student that graduates from high school graduates over time. Your goal is, with an associate's degree, means that their ability, and Doug talked about this, my ability to graduate from college in 3 years is a different deal when I go in with a year of college or 2 years of college under my belt. And so I really heard in Doug's story yesterday sort of the live experience of doing this, and all of us could do that in this relationship with UniversityNow. And then finally, the reality that we're working in neighborhoods where people in fact come in with some severe remediation, no fault of their own, right? There are people who are learning disadvantaged, right? And that's a different population. But for many of the young people that we work with, it's been the system that's been broken, not them. And so we've piloted the foundational courses that are kind of pre-college courses with UniversityNow. They teach study skills, numeracy and literacy, that really are the preparatory kind of classes that you need to succeed on the platform. And I don't know where that is, but I want to put that out also as a possibility. And so I just want to say that there's a whole range of things that we have found extraordinarily helpful and are just thrilled to be in the relationship with them.
No, I mean, we built this place so that we could have conversations like this. This is why we built it. We didn't know how these were going to happen. You just kind of step out and you do something. I mean, to the point about early childhood, the California Head Starts in Northern California came to us and said, here's a check, build the program, because we don't have an early childhood program. And they paid us to build it, and now they'll send us their teachers. And it's great. I mean, it's not going to be a huge business, but it makes the point that we can do this. And if we scale out across the country, there's 50,000 people, I think, was the last number I saw, that need early college credentials, early childhood credentials. And we're the lowest cost in the country. So this kind of disruption needs to benefit people that need it. And that's all we've tried to do with this. Go ahead.
Thank you. 3 questions, quick ones. What time does your football team play on Saturday afternoon at UniversityNow?
Right.
Second, actually somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but let us know when we can get in on the IPO. It's a very interesting, fascinating company.
I appreciate it.
I would be interested. I serve on a committee at a university that I went to, and I've been kind of advocating their movement towards, I call this online experience, and I can just see how much they retrench. I'd be interested in hearing the top 2 or 3 objections you're getting from the brick and mortar colleagues, your university systems.
It's less and less. I think people are nervous for good reason. I mean, there's a lot of people spent their careers building schools and working as instructors, and I know it's hard. Like, it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh, you guys don't get it, but they've been doing something for 30 years, the brick and mortar guys. Their biggest objection was about the outcomes, and I think these models where you have objective assessments, the professors don't know the teachers, you're using data, and you can't move forward unless you pass it, kind of speak to the quality issue, because our outcomes are the same, and quite frankly, the rigor around ensuring that someone knows it is higher to withstand the criticism. So that's one. And then, I think there's the, so that the one is like, hey, people don't learn, there's a quality issue. And the others are just what I call the various political arguments that people make. The problem is that the industry changed. So higher ed, if you took online out of it, growth is flat. All the growth in US higher education right now is coming from online. And then if you look at what's happening globally, we will need, I've heard somewhere between 150 and 200 million new seats in higher ed around the globe in the next 9 years. Because there's 1 billion people that just joined the middle class and they want their kids to have the same thing that ours have. So that is creating a dynamic that these arguments just can't stand up to anymore. And I think higher ed's going to change. For me, it's like, well, how do I make it work for East Oakland and Roxbury, where I grew up? How does this work for folks, for everyday people? And it doesn't just work for, like, you know, folks who already have a college degree or MOOCs or whatever the case may be. But how do we get this solution, use this as a solution? So I think the arguments are falling by the wayside more and more as these schools struggle with low enrollments and other things. So that's the.
Thanks. So building off the idea of you know, kind of disruption and disruptive change, I can definitely, so all of us purpose-built communities are doing something that challenges the status quo to some degree. And what you're doing definitely challenges the status quo as well. I'd love your thoughts about, you know, as you're doing this, how do you communicate your message in a way that's clear to people? You're doing, you're creating a platform that is new and different to people. How do you create, you know, I guess communicate that clearly? How do you build a coalition of supporters, so people that want to join your team? And then how do you, I guess there's this other group that really wants to preserve the status quo. And so, you know, how much time do you spend, I don't know if the term is fighting against them, versus, you know, trying to win them over or just avoiding them?
So I take the last one first. The reason we decoupled from federal money wasn't just the rules, it was the politicization of it. It's just a way to have a fight with somebody over what they view as a limited pot of resources. So we got out of that fight, and that's really changed my job as a CEO. I don't spend, if I go to Washington, it's a courtesy call. I'm just coming to let you know what the future's looking like, and I'm bringing you a PowerPoint deck and say, that's where we're going. I'm not asking for permission. So that gets you out of a certain set of, like, political dynamics, and that makes the fight bearable for a startup, because I've seen it before where it's not bearable. In terms of communication, I think for me what was different about this is in my last 2 businesses, they were K-12, and I grew up in a house and I understood the message and the consumer at a very, you know, personal way. I knew what the conversations were like over the dinner table when you're trying to figure out how to get your kid into a school and make ends meet and all that stuff. So I got that. For this business, we had to bring in professionals. We hired the person who ran marketing from Hotwire, who built Hotwire. Many of you know Hotwire is the low-cost travel site, because it's the same problem. We had what I call the Expedia problem. So imagine you go to a website to get a hotel. You come into this conference, you're going to stay at a hotel. There's a bunch of hotels that are $200 a night, and then there's one that's $22. They're all on the page. They're all 3 stars. $22 hotel, everybody else is $200. And you're thinking there must be a typo, or that place is not a good place to go. Like, I'm not going there. So this is true. This is the first time we opened up the doors and started the call center. People would call and they'd say, but seriously though, this can't be true. Like, you're gonna steal my credit card, take my identity, right? I mean, and the calls would be like 45 minutes. I mean, you'd be, and I'm the CEO, I've raised this venture cap, I got this thing figured out. And I'm sitting there listening to one of our reps talk to a parent, a potential student for 30 minutes, and finally the woman's exasperated. She's asked, why is this so inexpensive? So finally she just said, you know what? Well, why is everybody else so much more expensive? Can you tell me that? And the young woman said, ma'am, I can't answer that question. And I realized at that point that we had a social proof problem, a problem of no one's heard of you, who are you guys? And so we started talking to the media about who we were and explaining it. New York Times article comes out, Forbes magazine. And then you go to the website and you click and there's Forbes and there's New York Times, and there's the Wall Street Journal and this one and that one. All of a sudden people are like, oh, I get it. And then AT&T sends an email. Email wasn't from me, it was from AT&T. And it has their logo on it. And that helps you build brand credibility. And that's just a fact I had to learn in all this. Whereas in the charter school world, we didn't have this problem. We did have it here, and it cost us tens of millions of dollars to build this message and start to get the machinery in place. And then your middle question was, the coalition. Yeah. So it's this kind of work right now that I think is important. Like having folks like you who are leaders in the community understand what we're doing. so that you can tell us how we can help you. I don't know all the ways that we can be helpful. I just know we built something that I think at least solves a pain point, and it can help accelerate some of the work you're doing. So how do you leverage this? And I think it's just dialogue. We have a team of people who sit down and partner, and we're looking for more community partners to go along with some of the corporate partnerships we're building. So hopefully that answers your question. And we've got like a couple more minutes, and then they're going to yank me. So any other? Yeah.
How can a K through 8 charter school plug into your system?
K through 8, we've only started middle and high school, but if you've got middle school students, we could get you on the platform, the same way we would a high school. We would just set up a partnership, and your kids could start taking college classes.
Will you go down to K through?
I mean, we would go as low as, if a student can pass the course, we would be, if you have the support for them, we'd let them, why wouldn't we? I mean, there's no harm to us for allowing them onto the platform to learn and what. We think this is, what we've built is probably more appropriate for middle high school, but, we're open. I mean, I'm solely open to being wrong about that, and I'd be willing to work with anybody who raised their hand, quite frankly, given what we're trying to do. Other questions?
Any conversations or interest about from the traditional ISDs? So many of them offer dual credit classes.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet. The charter schools, the question is, have we worked with traditional schools and ISDs? And the answer is typically not so far. And we've had some people that we know, like I have friends that are superintendents, and we want to work together, but the process is so, because then they're worried about what the community college thinks, and it's all this stuff around it. So we've just, as a startup, we've had to pick our partners, and we like to partner with folks that can move fast like us, and we just, put some points on the board together. Any more? I've got 1 minute. Okay, any more questions? All right, great. Thank you.